My name's Dr. Nick Galli. I'm a mental performance consultant for US Speed Skating, and I've been with the group since fall of 2016. Yeah, emotional health is really, a state of well-being where individuals feel, generally satisfied with their life, are able to interact effectively with other people, and feel like they have the tools to move toward the goals and accomplish the things that are important to them. I would say that what we would tend to see in a lot of elite athletes is, in many cases, they're fairly emotionally healthy. It would be, challenging to get to the level that they've risen to, and have poor emotional health. So that means they've probably had a lot of social support to get to where they've been. They've had access to resources. Certainly, they've accomplished a lot of their goals. So, in many cases, athletes are very emotionally healthy. Yeah, so some things that you might want to look for if you're interested in emotional health is, how much worry an athlete seems to be giving off. Is it an appropriate amount of worry? Because we all have worries. Do their states of sadness or being down, are those lasting, or again, are they more typical states of sadness that we all go through, sort of a period of the blues? Do they laugh? Do they smile? Do they have friends? Do they have a life outside of sport? That's very important. And really, it's very individual as well. So what emotional health looks like for me may be different than what it looks like for somebody else. A lot of times what we're looking for are deviations from the norm for that person. Are there things that are really out of character? That's when we might become concerned. Well, I think the first thing for a coach is hopefully you developed a relationship to where you feel like you can approach the athlete about that. The coach works with the athlete more than anyone else in the sport world, so hopefully they feel like they can pull the athlete aside and say, hey, I notice you've been acting this way, or you've been doing this when you usually do that. What's going on? How can I help? What do you need to talk about it? That would be the first step. I do think that there is still a stigma. It's much better than it was. We've seen a lot of high-profile athletes in the last 5 years especially really be open and share their stories over social media or in popular sport news outlets like Sports Illustrated and ESPN. And I think that really has generated some dialogue, both in the sport world and outside too. I think people are more realizing that this is mental health, emotional health problems are around. They don't mean that there's anything wrong with you. They just mean that you're a human being. So I think there's a general stigma that's getting better. In the sport world, I do think there's a sort of a special stigma because as an athlete, you're supposed to be able to push through and manage things and suck it up. That's something that you hear a lot, and that serves athletes very well. So there is a sense that, if you talk to someone about this stuff, especially if it's someone like me who's, that's what I do is mental stuff, that maybe there's something wrong with you. Maybe you're not quite mentally tough enough. But I would say if they're willing to take the first step to talk, oftentimes, with a bit of encouragement, that they will open up if they feel like they're being listened to and there's a sense of trust and a good relationship. Yeah, so practices for developing good emotional health, I think it starts with the very basics, making sure that you're taking care of your sleep, making sure that you're eating well, making sure that you're exercising, which usually isn't much of a problem for speed skaters. very basic things that a lot of us take for granted. Screen time has become a real problem. We're starting to see in the research some links between screen time and anxiety, depression. So managing that's where it starts. And then from there, it's, making sure that even though this is your life to be a high-level athlete, that you have other things. There are other parts to your identity, other things that you enjoy, friends that you can interact with and talk about other stuff because you're more than just your sport. And then with a lot of our athletes, they enjoy doing a bit of meditation. There are some good apps out there like Headspace that you can plug into and just separate from this chaotic lifestyle and just be. I mean, mindfulness is a big buzzword right now, and we're constantly preaching to our athletes mindfulness, both in terms of their performance, but just in terms of being human and being emotionally healthy. So those are some things that some of the very basic things that I think not just for athletes but for everybody, for parents and coaches as well. I go back to something I said a bit ago about being able to recognize the differences in somebody. How is this person behaving differently than what's typical for them? And I think maybe we can do that for ourselves. Self-awareness is obviously going to be very important to be able to recognize that there could be something going on. So cultivating that, however works for you. I mean, some people like to journal, taking a moment for reflection, and that's why mindfulness is important, because if we say, instead of having a full mind, to be mindful. If you're constantly having a full mind, you're never stopping to take stock of what's normal, and things it's a slippery slope. Things are slowly getting out of hand and sliding out of control. So the earlier you can catch that, the better. So being able to take a moment and how am I feeling? How have I been feeling? Am I okay with how I've been feeling? Is this, do I feel successful day in and day out? Am I enjoying what I'm doing generally? Not every day is fun. But you've got to be willing to go inside yourself, which not everybody is great at that. In some cases, people have become really good at shutting that off. But I think a lot of times, that like you're not happy.
There's something off.
You can only be unhappy for so long. And what's great about being an athlete, one of the many great things, is that you have a built-in support system, hopefully, of people that you can talk to about that and not be isolated. Very much so. I mean, and I think a lot of times we think about and talk about, resilience. So I think resilience is something that is interchangeable and that we have to discuss when we talk about emotional health. A lot of times we think of it as this really almost mythical quality of resilience, and we look at and talk about people that have been able to overcome these incredible odds, but in reality, you can't go through life without being resilient in some respect. Now, some people have been less successful in tapping into that than other people, but a lot of the things that I mention about taking care of yourself, emotional health, having social support, sleeping, eating, all of those things go into helping you to be resilient. Being able to tap into sort of the past adversities and things, tough spots in your training that you've overcome, all of that kind of increases your confidence in your own ability to be resilient. But you gotta be, right? I mean, there's not really a choice in sports and in life. I mean, it's there. I think, the big sign is that you can struggle and have a tough day or even a tough week and be okay with that and move on and have a better day or a better week the next time. It speaks to that resilience, is that it's not like long-standing, I feel, like junk all the time. That you have sort of normal, healthy patterns of ups and downs. Are you taking time every day to tap into what we call these different dimensions of wellness? So your intellectual wellness. Are you stretching yourself and learning new things? Are you tapping into your social wellness? Are you working with other people? Are you enjoying spending time with other people? Are you taking time for yourself, the mindfulness and the meditation? Do you just feel balanced? Do you feel like, even if you don't have everything you want in that moment, do you feel like, you're living in accordance with what your values are and working toward those things? Again, all of that requires a fair bit of self-awareness. If you're 10 years old, I don't expect that, you're there yet, but as a parent or a coach, that's kind of part of your job, is to help clarify those things for them. I think it's great. I think we do too much of. I think it's great that we're focusing or emphasizing more the fun and the play aspect of competitive sport, because it's sport, and we do talk about playing sport, right? It's not working sport. We're playing sport. So too much of the time, I think we tend to put things in boxes. Well, if it's play and it's fun, then it can't be serious and competitive. And if it's serious and competitive, it can't be play or fun. And I don't think that's true at all. I think some of the most enjoyable, fun things involve competition and involve striving to be the best that you can be. So I don't think the fact that we're emphasizing enjoyment and personal improvement takes anything away from our ability to be competitive. In fact, I think it enhances it. One of the things that I preach to all of my athletes that I work with is, if you're enjoying what you're doing, you're putting yourself in a much better position to get the best out of yourself. If every day is a struggle and you're always questioning why you're doing this, and if everything hinges on getting the medal or qualifying, over time, that's where we see burnout. I think the first place to go would be to make an appointment with your family physician or family doctor, because they're kind of the gatekeeper into these services. They're going to know what's available to you, or they should know how to put you in the right direction in your area. In terms of just getting some information, if you want to go online, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI, is a great place to check out all kinds of information and resources. CDC, Centers for Disease Control, also has a lot of statistics and resources. American Psychological Association is another place. Just if you want to learn more about emotional health and what good emotional health is, and signs and symptoms and all of that. If you're looking for sport-specific resources, National Collegiate Athletics Association has really done a lot to try and put this issue at the forefront of what they do at that level. And even if you don't have a son or a daughter who's an NCAA athlete yet, you can check out some of the resources that they have available to them. There really is a lot out there now that there wasn't 10 years ago, and you can really educate yourself quite a bit. Yeah, so in working with the national team, I was hired really to work with them and with the coaches on the mental aspects of performance, which is what I spend the majority of my time doing. But I will get a fair share of athletes come and want to talk about other things that more indirectly affect their performance, but more importantly, affect their emotional health and their well-being, which to me is primary, because they can't perform well if they're not emotionally well. And a lot of it does stem from fear of failure, expectations. A lot of them are managing a lot. They're having to work full-time and still train, and just the life balance. A lot of athletes, we do have social relationship issues that will come out, and at times I'm able to talk to them and just kind of be a sounding board for them, and give them my take. And then other times we have more clinical resources that we can refer them to either if they're on the elite athlete insurance, or I can help them find somebody that they can work with through their own insurance. But it's fairly common. I mean, people may not think that it is, but there's a good majority of high-level athletes who, you know, may not have a clinically diagnosable mental illness, but who are struggling with a lot of the same stuff that other people their age struggle with, but also with some unique things as well, and those come out. So when we're talking about emotional health, we're really talking about people who are able to live their lives effectively. We all want our athletes, our coaches, to perform to the best of their ability. But before they can do that, they've got to make sure that they're taking care of themselves, and that they're living a life that's in some way balanced. And balance looks differently for a high-level athlete. I realize that. But if we ignore and we assume that, you know, everything's just okay if you fight through it, I think you know, we risk creating an environment where we have poor emotional health. So I just think it's something we need to think about and be proactive about with the youngest of athletes, making sure that they know that they are empowered to take care of themselves.